When I was a little girl, I loved studying the Bible. I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness, and I was genuinely fascinated by the stories, by history, and by the idea of God, having that relationship with God. But I was also that annoying child that was always asking, but why? But why? And, I'd always hear my mom say, because I said so. And that was never good enough for me. I don't know why, asking questions was treated as disobedience. But when it did come to the Bible, my mom did answer me. She would open up the Bible and she would show me scriptures that supported what she believed. And logically, I could follow the explanation. But then I would have another why and another. Because even when the answers made sense in my mind, something inside me felt unresolved. I couldn't always put it into words. I only knew that the explanation did not feel complete. It was as though something was missing, something I could feel but couldn't yet name it. And I wasn't trying to be disobedient or difficult. I was trying to bring what I was being taught into alignment with something deeper inside me. And if something is true, shouldn't it be able to survive another question? And if God gave us a mind capable of curiosity, reason, and discernment, why would using that mind be considered dangerous? I remember as a child, during Bible study, I asked a question: if Jesus could walk on water, why can't I? And I wasn't making fun of Jesus. I was being completely serious. I wanted to understand what human beings were capable of and whether the miraculous was something that we're only supposed to read about, or is it something that we're actually meant to explore? But as I grew older, many of the things that I naturally felt drawn towards were considered wrong or evil, like Reiki, like other religions, like astrology, tarot, like mysticism, basically anything that existed outside the approved explanation. My mom and I didn't always have an easy relationship during those years. The subjects that made me feel curious and alive frightened her, like astrology, tarot, other religions, and mysticism were things that she sincerely thought were harmful. But I do want to make something very clear. I deeply love and respect my mom. She is one of the smartest and most intelligent women I know. Even though we don't see eye to eye on many things, she is one of my favorite people to debate with. I love my mom and I love debating with her. And really, she believed that she was protecting me. And I'm not gonna lie, it was difficult to feel that the things that I was naturally drawn to were considered evil in her eyes. And I don't blame her for that experience. In many ways, I thank her for it. Because of the resistance I felt, it propelled me to search deeper. It made me examine what I believed instead of inheriting the beliefs. It led me into history, it led me into religion, it led me into science, human behavior, ancient civilizations, all the mysteries that have shaped my life. My mom, she gave me the first doorway into the Bible, and perhaps our differences gave me the courage to keep walking through every other doorway that I encountered afterwards. So this story isn't about blaming my mom or rejecting everything that she taught me. It is about recognizing that the people who challenge us the most deeply also help to shape the person we are meant to become. For a long time, I had felt that I had turned my back on God. But looking back now, I don't believe I rejected God. I was searching for a relationship with God that could hold both the faith my mother introduced me to and the questions that belonged uniquely to me. And something about Jesus never fit the version of religion I had been given. Because when I read about Jesus, I didn't see someone blindly protecting religious authority. I saw someone who challenged hypocrisy, someone who crossed social boundaries, someone who stood beside people society had condemned, someone who overturned tables, someone who repeatedly placed compassion above rigid rules. Jesus looked like a rebel to me. Not a rebel who opposed everything simply to be difficult, but a sacred rebel. Someone willing to confront anything that stood between people and God. And that made me wonder if questioning religious authority isn't always a rejection of God. What if sometimes it's an act of devotion to truth? There is a moment in the Bible that I have come to appreciate differently. At 12 years old, Jesus was found in the temple, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking questions. Yes, asking questions. The very thing that I had sometimes been made to feel guilty of doing. After that moment, the Bible tells us very little about Jesus' life until his ministry began around the age of 30. There were later stories and traditions suggesting that he may have traveled or encountered other schools of thought during those missing years. We cannot prove those stories, but the unknown years have always fascinated me. What shaped his understanding? What did he experience? What strengthened his connection with God? We may never know, but perhaps admitting that we don't know is more honest and more sacred than filling every silence with certainty. My questions eventually led me everywhere. I became fascinated with history, human behavior, different religions like Kabbalah, secret societies, the Knights Templar, down the rabbit hole of the Manhattan Project, ancient civilizations, Anunnaki, the mystical, basically all the mystical world. At one point, I even wanted to major in religious studies. I wanted to place all the religions besides one another, connect the reoccurring symbols and ideas, and see whether a larger picture would emerge from all this. I wasn't trying to replace one rigid belief system with another. I was searching for the pattern beneath them all. I have always been drawn to what we cannot see. And maybe that's why I was attracted to God, mysticism, ancient mysteries, and eventually particle physics. So much of what shapes our life is invisible. We cannot see love, but we know it when we feel it. We cannot hold consciousness in our hands, yet it's the very thing through which we experience existence. We cannot see gravity itself. We see what it does, and beneath everything that appears solid is a world of particles, fields, and forces hidden from our eyes. Of course, something being invisible doesn't automatically make it true. Curiosity, it still needs discernment, but the invisible is not the same as the unreal. Sometimes we recognize something not by seeing it directly, but by witnessing what it changes. Then in my 20s, I discovered the book called The God Particle, and it opened something inside me. It was exciting during that time. That's when they were building CERN. And here was science looking beneath the visible world and asking what matter is made of and what gives structure to the physical universe. It was exciting to see scientists were building enormous machines to collide particles and examine what exists beneath what we cannot see. And strangely, it didn't make existence feel less spiritual to me. It actually made it more extraordinary. The science did not remove the mystery. It revealed how much mystery there was. The God particle didn't challenge my faith. It expanded it. It reminded me that reality extends far beyond what our senses can immediately perceive. And perhaps faith is not pretending to know exactly what exists in the unseen. And perhaps faith is remaining open to the possibility that what we can see is not all there is. It made me feel that God, or whatever name you want to give this intelligence, source, or mystery beneath the existence, might be infinitely larger than the version I had inherited. Years ago, I made a vision board, and recently I looked at it again, and I noticed something that gave me the chills. In the upper right corner, there was an image that looked like particles colliding. And then on the lower right corner, there was the Sphinx and the pyramids of Egypt. And directly above Egypt, there was the words that were saying living from the heart. I had created that vision board years ago, before I knew how those images would all come together. In October of 2023, I traveled to Egypt by myself. I didn't go with a partner or someone I already knew. I joined a group of people who, like me, were curious about ancient civilizations and the unanswered questions surrounding our history. I arrived alone, but I met wonderful people who understood the part of me that always wanted to look deeper. The questions that once made me feel like an outsider had carried me across the world and helped me find belonging. We went to Giza, we saw the Sphinx, we visited Saqqara, Dashar. There's a lot of names I can't pronounce, but we did go to the Luxor, the Temple of Isis. Like basically, we went to the Valley of the Kings, Hathor's temple, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And while we were there, the October 7th attacks occurred and the war in Gaza began. It was surreal. I was walking through the remains of ancient civilizations while history was unfolding nearby. After thousands of years of religion, knowledge, temples, sacred writings, and human progress, we're still dividing ourselves through land, identity, belief, and power. And I kept wondering, why are human beings so ready to condemn one another? Why do we look at what makes us different and completely forget about what makes us human? Near the end of my journey, I entered the Great Pyramid and I went into the King's Chamber and I climbed into the granite coffer. And I got to lay down inside it and I became deeply emotional. I felt my heart open. I had spent my entire life trying to think my way into the mystery. But inside the Great Pyramid, I stopped trying to solve it. For a moment, I simply just felt it. Years earlier, I had placed Egypt on my vision board beneath the words, living from the heart. And now I'm inside the Great Pyramid, having a heart-opening experience I could have never planned. You could call that manifestation, you could call it synchronicity, you could call it subconscious directing. I don't need to tell you what to call it. I only know that it meant something to me. And maybe that is part of what faith has become for me. Not pretending to possess every answer, but remaining open enough to experience the mystery. Even today, I have people in my life who believe some of the things that I explore are evil. And honestly, it hurts. Not simply because someone disapproves of me, but because it reflects something much larger about humanity. We are so quick to place one another into categories: Christian, mystic, believer, skeptic, good, evil, right, wrong. We judge one another through our differences before we ever look through our heart and recognize everything that we share. I don't want to respond to that judgment by creating another belief system that judges them in return. I don't need everyone to believe what I believe. I'm still discovering what I believe. I only wonder why disagreement must become condemnation. My mom and I still disagree about many things, but she remains one of the people I admire most. And maybe unity is never supposed to mean becoming identical. Maybe it means learning to recognize the same humanity, the same love beneath all our differences. The Bible says in 1 Corinthians, if I can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge and have faith that can move mountains, but I do not have love, I am nothing. Mysteries, knowledge, faith, and love. We can possess knowledge. We could defend scripture. We can investigate particles. We could study ancient civilizations. We can become absolutely certain that our beliefs are correct. But if all that certainty makes us less capable of loving one another, what have we actually understood? Jesus said the greatest commandment were to love God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and love your neighbor as yourself, your heart, your soul, and your mind. Maybe we were never supposed to abandon one in order to honor another. The atom smasher cannot prove that we are spiritually all one, but it can reveal that the world that appears solid and separate is made from the same fundamental ingredients and governed by the same underlying laws. And perhaps that gives us a beautiful metaphor for humanity. Beneath our religions, races, nations, identities, and personal beliefs, we share the same fundamental needs. We want to be loved. We want to feel safe. We want to be understood. We want our lives to mean something. And maybe we are all one. Maybe we are one consciousness, experiencing life through billions of different perspectives. Or maybe we are simply one human family that has forgotten how deeply we belong to one another. I don't claim to know, but I believe the question is worth asking. And that is what Of Moon and Mind means to me. The mind is part of us that investigates, studies, questions, and refuses to accept because I said so. The moon represents the mystery, the intuitive, symbolic, unseen, parts of existence that cannot always be measured, but can still move and transform us. And then the heart, it reminds us why we are searching in the first place. This is where science and spirituality are allowed to sit at the same table, where ancient questions meet modern discoveries, where curiosity is not condemned, and where we can explore the unknown without surrendering either our intelligence or our wonder. I am not here to tell you what to believe. I am here to ask the questions that awaken something inside us. Because maybe some of us didn't leave religion because we stopped believing in God. Maybe we left because the version of God we were given could no longer hold our questions. Maybe our curiosity wasn't leading us away from God. Maybe it was leading us beyond the ideas about God that had become too small. And maybe the ultimate measure of faith isn't how accurately we can identify what is wrong with someone else. And maybe it is how deeply we can love them when their path looks nothing like ours. We cannot see love, but we recognize it by what it changes. And maybe the sacred is known in the same way. We can understand mysteries, we can acquire knowledge, we could have faith strong enough to move mountains, but if it does not teach us how to love, what have we truly understood? This is Of Moon and Mind, and this is who I am. Thank you for joining me today. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up. If you want to hear more of my content, hit subscribe.